You know that feeling of dread so many startup founders get? The investor pitch. The word itself just makes you think of some high-stakes performance, right? A slick sales job where you've got one shot to sell this perfect, flawless vision. But what if that whole idea is just wrong? What if it's actually setting you up to fail? And what if the real secret to winning over investors has nothing to do with pitching at all?
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll tackle the big problem with pitching. Then we'll introduce you to your new job title, which is teacher. After that, we'll get into what investors actually need to learn from you. We'll talk about the absolute superpower that is candor. And finally, we'll look at what really matters beyond the presentation itself.
So first up, the problem with pitching. Let's just go ahead and challenge this whole traditional approach because honestly, it's pretty flawed.
So what's really wrong with the investor pitch? Well, the biggest issue is the mindset it puts you in. It frames the whole conversation like a performance. You're the performer, they're the judges. And that immediately creates this, adversarial dynamic. You're there trying to impress them, and they're there trying to poke holes in your story. You basically have people who are bad at explaining, talking to people who are bad at understanding. It's just a massive waste of everyone's time.
And this sell mode, it's a total trap. It forces you to get defensive, to try and paint this perfect, risk-free picture of the future. But here's the thing. Any experienced investor knows that every single startup is risky. So when you try to sell them on perfection, you're not just being unrealistic, you're actually hiding the most valuable thing you have to offer, which is your deep, honest-to-goodness understanding of the problem you're trying to solve.
Which brings us to the core idea of this whole explainer. Your new job is to be a teacher. And I'm not talking about a small tweak here. This is a fundamental mindset shift that changes absolutely everything about how you walk into those meetings.
Just look at the difference here. When you're in the pitch mindset, you're performing. In the teach mindset, you're informing. Instead of persuading, you're collaborating. You stop selling a vision and you start demonstrating your expertise. And that expertise, that's your superpower. You know more about your little corner of the world than anyone else in that room, including the investors. Your job is not to sell them, it's to educate them.
Okay, so if you're a teacher, that means you need a lesson plan, right? Let's talk about your founder curriculum. The stuff investors are actually trying to learn when they sit down with you.
These are the questions that are really at the heart of the lesson. Now notice what they're not asking. They're not asking for perfection. They're digging for thoughtfulness. They don't expect you to have some bulletproof plan. They expect you to have a deep, nuanced, and totally honest understanding of your market, your users, your competition, and, this is the big one, the potential risks.
So one of the very first things you need to teach is the existence of what's called your larval market. This isn't some huge, vague, everyone in the world kind of market. No, this is about a small, specific group of early users. Think of them as the people who need what you're building so badly that they're willing to use a buggy, early version from a company they've never even heard of. That is your beachhead. That's the first foothold you need to teach investors about, because it's where everything else grows from.
All right, let's move on to how you deliver this lesson, because this is how you build real credibility. It's not just what you teach, it's how you teach it. And your most effective teaching tool by far is radical candor.
Let's be blunt here for a second, because this quote nails it. Investors have seen it all. They have heard thousands of pitches. They are, and I quote, professional bullshit detectors. They can smell exaggeration from a mile away. Trying to fake it or spin a story is the absolute fastest way to destroy your credibility and end the conversation before it even really begins.
So here's the golden rule. What do you do when they ask you a question and you don't know the answer? You don't make something up. You just say, you know what, I don't know. And then, this is the crucial part. You follow it up with exactly how you would figure out the answer. Admitting you don't know something and then showing you have a thoughtful process to find out, that builds way more trust than some flimsy, made-up answer ever could.
Okay, finally, let's zoom out a bit. Convincing an investor is never really about one single dazzling presentation. It's the end result of a process that really rests on three fundamental pillars.
It's this simple three-step framework. This is your true north. And notice that the presentation, the explaining the value part, is the final step. It's not the first. All the real work happens in steps 1 and 2. Building something valuable, and then deeply understanding why it's valuable. The meeting is just a classroom where you get to teach what you've already learned.
And that really brings us to the ultimate takeaway here. When you stop pitching and you start teaching, the entire goal of the meeting changes. You're not trying to hunt down a quick yes anymore. You're laying the foundation for a long-term partnership. You are starting a relationship built on your credibility and expertise.
a relationship with someone you've just successfully educated about a future that they now understand and hopefully really want to be a part of.
So, I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. Your whole approach should be built around the answer to this. Because as a founder, you're not just a builder or a salesperson. You are an expert with unique knowledge. So, what is the one crucial thing that only you can teach an investor about the future that you are creating?